presentation, first and foremost, then making your resume as truthful as you can, because we see it right away when it doesn't match. It's just something that is pretty simple to find out. Answer to the questions that we're asking, because that's what we're trying to get to, and you completely sidetrack and go through something else, then you lose our attention.
Hello and welcome to this episode of OysterLink's podcast. My today's guest is Andres Goeta. He's a general manager at Serena Hotel by Hilton. Welcome, Andres.
Thank you so very much. Again, as you said, my name is Andres Goeta. I'm general manager here at the Serena Hotel in Aventura. We're a tapestry collection by Hilton. My current position, as you said, is general manager. However, within Hilton, I've been in several positions, all the way from bellman, which is how they started. About 16, 17 years ago, I started as a bellman, grew all the way through front desk, back of the house, PBX. I did concierge as well at some point, supervisor, managers, the list goes on and on and on. But yeah, that's where I am right now. And I've been at this position for 2 years now.
Amazing. It seems like you're the perfect partner to speak about hospitality career progression. So let's go a little bit back in the past. Did you always know you're going to be in hospitality, or was it more a spur of the moment when you joined as a bellman?
Look, I started hospitality because it's my father, my dad, is a long tenure hotelier. And since I was a kid, I saw my dad working, and I remember clearly when he had when he had to be like manager on duty, and we all had to stay in the hotel, and he was there all over the weekends, and it just kind of struck me, the hospitality industry was to me was a little bit interesting. Let's just say that, to see all the moving parts that have to come together for a guest to have a room, for someone to come to the hotel and have a nice clean room, to have a beautiful lobby, to have all these things. And it just, to me, was surprising. It's not just about coming in and here you go, here's your room. So many people have to come together and have to work together in order for, us to give you a room. That was the part that I really enjoyed. Obviously, other than that, it was the hospitality part, the service part, how you get to connect with people. And that was that little part that kind of got my first foot in the door in hospitality. So I owe it to my dad.
So your dad, I want to assume, was also one of your first mentors in hospitality. How important is mentorship for young people that want to join, and better off, how to find your first mentor?
Look, first and foremost, I think is the not to say the most important, is definitely top 3, but definitely having a mentor will guide you through the career. In my case, as I said, my first one was my dad, because I knew him from that, but I've never worked directly with him, So when you are at a property, there's certain managers, there's certain leaders, there's certain people that would come your way. This will always happen. It's happened to me throughout my entire career, where you connect with leaders and leaders connect with you. And you make that connection, and once you have that, then you're starting, then all of a sudden that person becomes your mentor, and it's that person that you go to when you say, hey, I'm not too sure how to deal with this, give me some light, or give me your input, or tell me what to do. In my case, I had great mentors. I can, definitely say that. And there's people that always had me also thinking, you know what I mean? In this, and what I'm trying to say is, When I came with an issue or an idea, they made me work for the answer. You know what I mean? And that's the same way that I do with the people that I, that are so-called, that I mentor. Um, it's most of the time we know what the answer is. We just need that backup and say, hey, here you go, you can do it. Or that person that says, okay, perfect, I like that the way that you think. Let's try it this way. Or even, let's say, even though you and I are not quite in the same boat on what to think or to take this approach, let's do it your way and see how it goes. That's all about mentorship. Having that person that is there with you and say, whatever happens, I'm right here next to you. I think that's huge. And I've had in throughout my career great mentors to help me grow in this sense.
Wow, that's really important and inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. You just mentioned that it's one of the top three. So could you complete the sentence? The top three, um, I want to say, not even secret ingredients for a successful career, but the top three key factors for a successful hospitality career.
I would say first and foremost, your team. In any way or any situation that you could be a GM, you could be a manager, you could be a supervisor. The people that are next to you, that are people that are hand by hand next to you, you have to all be able to work in synergy through a same path, right? So if you're people that are working on a day to day with you, you're not on the same page. Unfortunately, those whatever your goals are, you're not gonna meet them. I think first let's just go one by one, and I'm really not sure if I can put them 1, 2, 3. All these three are very, very important. So I would say first and foremost, I would say communication. Communication is top. I always say to my team, there's no such thing as too little communication. I rather have people tell me or everybody to be on the same page on things that I'm like, okay, I might have not needed that information, but at least I have it. Then people not knowing, should I tell this to Andres? Should he know about this? Communication is so important in things that are very, very little to things that are really important. So communication, team, and mentorship. Those three are my top.
Okay, amazing. So let's go a little bit to what does a perfect candidate to join Serena Hotel by Hilton look like? What do they need to have? What type of skills? Let's say an entry level position, because this is the biggest question we are getting: how to land the first job. Like, okay, career progress aside, but what should they focus on? How should their resume look like? How should they present themselves?
I'll give you a great example. So I always say, and I didn't come up with this, but I always look at attitude before aptitude, right? So sometimes you have a big resume and you see it, but that connection is not there. I am huge in really sitting down and listening to the people that I am interviewing. I found out great people, great candidates that have never worked in hospitality, but they're hospitable. I can teach you all day long the system. That's no problem. I cannot make you be hospitable. You have to have that in you. So I remember probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was opening a hotel. It was a brand new open, and as you know, I have over 400 resumes on my table, and I'm going through all these people, and it's I go through all of them, and then I come up to the last 4 or 5 that I have to make an interviews for, and out of this 4, there's one that has no hotel experience, has never worked in hotels. So I go through the interview because, again, that's my philosophy. That's my mentality. I never shut down just because it doesn't say that they're working in a hotel. Look, it's great because, they already know how everything works, but it's not everything. I will never shut down a resume just because it doesn't say that they don't have 10 years in hospitality. I like to meet the person, and I hire the person, not the paper. So when the person is here, in this case, what happened to me is that I went through all this last 4 or 5 people um, that I had to interview, and even though the others had really great experience in hospitality, I ended up going for the person that had zero hospitality. And this was an entry level. This was for front desk agent. And I knew it was going to be, quote unquote, let's say, tough to teach her all the Hilton ways and all, all the things that had to go through the operating systems and whatnot. There was definitely something that caught my attention. It is the way that she portrayed herself to me. And I am really, really glad to say that I was not wrong in the decision that I made. This person currently is a supervisor, and we have gone and given her more and more and more tasks. And she has come to love hospitality, even though she didn't come from it. But and she gets reviews all the time. I actually currently don't work with her. She's in another property, but we're still in touch. She calls me and she asks me a few things, and hey, what should I do in this case? That is what it's all about. Never hiring the paper, you hire the person, and always attitude over aptitude. That's my advice.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so let's do the three big no's during an interview as like either three biggest mistakes when applying for a job or three things I would don't want to see when you're interviewing with me.
Well, first and foremost, presentation is key. Presentation. So you have to be well, put together, well dressed. Um, that's the first one in my opinion, because everything comes right here through the eyes. That's the first thing. Um, a big no, let's just say, for the person that is coming in, that you don't have any idea whatsoever where you're going to. I've had people tell me, unfortunately, many times, like, oh, I didn't know this was, or I didn't know this type of, like, how at least like learn a little bit of where you're going to and applying to. That shows me that you did some sort of homework on, on the hotel or the place that you're going to. So just do that a little research in regards to that. Let's see, another no. When we can clearly see, and people that are decision makers, we've seen resumes all day long. We've seen resumes for many, many, many years. So we know when a resume is too big. And what I mean with this is when you have all this, you try to make it so pretty. And then when you come and you have that interview, you're like, it doesn't match, and we spot it right away. So be as truthful as you can, because at the end of the day, yes, that will get you a foot in the door, but the decisions are made when you're talking to the person, not in the resume. Again, we go back to the same thing. We hire the person, not the paper. So that's that. A better approach will be as truthful as you can, obviously, on the paper, and then here we'll make the connection, and we will try to dig in a little bit more into what's written, right? Because we can put as much as we can there, and it might not, it might not mirror what we're seeing. And that right there, it's a no for us. Is we're like, okay, we know where this is coming from.
Amazing, thank you. It happens and also when we are recruiting for like various positions, but it's interesting to see that it's applicable in many, many industries. We are trying also to hire people who have been involved with the industry because we need somewhat experts and people who understand the pain points of both the employers and job seekers. I myself worked for an airline for 5.5 years, so I pretty much know a lot about it. So some people think, oh yeah, I'm just gonna lie and I'm gonna say about hospitality, and then I ask them, so Give me an example when were you stressed? And then there's like, no, it was all smooth operations. Excuse me. Okay, what drugs are you using? What is like, what? Come on, let's just be honest. Hospitality is not such a smooth ride. So I'm like, yeah, sure, good job. Anyhow, so thank you for sharing that. Could you share a little bit more about the hiring process? Like, how does it go? How many stages do you have? What could candidates potentially expect when applying for a job?
Pretty simple. First and foremost, it comes through any of the platforms. It could come through Hilton, or it can come through Indeed. Normally, those type of platforms is where it comes to. When it arrives to the hotel, first and foremost, is seen by a hiring manager or a HRD. They'll do the first screening, obviously, and once again, they know obviously what we're looking for first and foremost. You know, there's it. I'm putting the pretty part when I said remember aptitude over aptitude, but also if we're looking for a very specific department, for example, like a director of finance, I would definitely hope that they have some sort of finance background. You know what I mean? But it goes through that screening first, and then it will go to the direct manager. For example, if it's front office, or if it's housekeeping, or if it's um, F&B, so on and so forth. Once we have those two in agreement, then it comes to me. I'll make the final check. I normally like to have my leaders kind of like take the decision. If they tell me it's a go, to me it will be kind of like the last step that I will oversee. And if I don't see something too crazy, I will normally go with it. I like to give my leaders the saying and say, hey, I really need this person, or hey, I think we should definitely go for this one. Again, I'll give it the last look. Any, sort of things that I might give my leaders after that, give some feedback, or like maybe like red flags, if you will. And that's it. And that's how we made the decision.
Amazing. Can you share some of your red flags?
Answer to the questions that we're asking, because that's what we're trying to get to. A lot of the times when you ask questions about, your experience or whatnot, or any questions that we as leaders or as hiring person will be doing, and you completely sidetrack and go through something else, then at that point you lose our attention, and you might want to be showcasing and saying all these things that you've done, but it's not what I asked. So at sometimes at point in times, I've had to kind of like ask the same question again, because that's what I'm trying to get, and I'm not getting it by so communication or listening comprehension, I would say.
Yeah, that's just listen to hear, not just to listen, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
like, okay, amazing. So, since you're a general manager of such a big property, how does a day in the life of a general manager look like?
That is such a great question, because it never looks the same. I just know the time that I get in. From that point in time, I'm not sure how my day is gonna go. I like to be very involved into the operations of the hotel. Um, Obviously, I look at my emails, I look at my reports. I have reports from all of my leaders, F&B, finance, sales. I have all those reports that I have to check. Perfect. That's that. If your regular question is that's what's my day today, that's my day today. But my day today is so much more than that. Sometimes my day doesn't start until 1, 2, 3 p.m. because you get to the hotel and we are here for our guest. That's our main priority. Um, I read a book once that from a great hospitality person, Will Guidara is his name, from our Reasonable Hospitality, and I absolutely loved it. And it said, take your job seriously without taking yourself too seriously. And what this means is I'm taking my job serious, but just because I'm the GM, whatever name you want to call it, or the director of finance, or the director of sales, or director of front office, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be on the floor with your team. I found out that I've learned so much from what our guests need just by being on the floor, not by receiving my reports from my director of sales or answering emails. So what my day looks like, it looks a lot like, yes, I do this part, I look at P&Ls, I look at all these big fancy things, but I'm outside also. I listen to my guests. I like to talk to guests, to clients, bus tables if I need to on a busy morning for breakfast, help my front desk team to check in a guest. You still get to learn so much from guests and listen to them, you know? So basically that's how my day looks. It's just, it completely varies from one day to the other.
Yeah, it's unpredictable and crazy. Hence what I said, if you tell me there is no drama, you have never set a foot in any type of hospitality establishment. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I can, answer emails all day long, no problem. But I'll be stuck here. And yeah, as you said, yeah, somebody else is dealing with the issues, not me. That's not the way that I hate. That's work.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've covered the part of that what you're looking for as like being hospitable, but what are some other skills that you could kind of like, point out to the potential candidates that they should be practicing, working on when it comes to getting hired by your hotel?
Communication, again, multitasking. I'm not sure because I've never worked in another type of industry, but in hospitality, you have to multitask. There's so many things that get thrown at us on a day-to-day basis. And with this, I don't mean doing all of them at the same time. You also have to be very organized. So put it on an agenda if you're that type of person that needs to write, or some people actually just, write it on their phones. I don't like to write it on my phone because I for some reason, I just don't go back to it. I always carry this with me. My notebook goes with me everywhere. Write it, and I know the things that I have and I have pending. And so I need to be organized in order to tackle every single one. So organization, communication, and multitasking.
Okay, amazing. I think that that's easily, it's easy to practice all of the three skills, communication per se, and then organization as well. Multitasking, maybe they can try by themselves, but I don't think that it will ever reach the hospitality industry level. Okay, great. Um, Assuming that you have made mistakes, in your career, what is the one mistake that you made or you have seen many people in the industry make and that you could warn our audience about?
Look, mistakes are always gonna happen. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. Um, but more than staying thinking about the mistake that you've made is knowing what you did or whatever the mistake was, and then moving forward and say, okay, this is a clean slate. Let me start over, and not going back to it. So a smart person learns from its mistakes. A wise person learns from other people's mistakes. So mistakes that happen. I mean, in hospitality, many things can happen. Like anywhere from a wrong checking and all this. These are type of things that are very systematical. Now, one thing that it's a mistake that no hotelier should make, and people that are still in the hospitality business still make, and it's one size fits one. This goes back again to that Will Guidara book. It was such a resounding thing to me when I read it, because it has happened to me. One size fits one. We've heard a lot, one size fits all. Hospitality is so different than that. And we cannot assume that the same thing that you're going to like, I will like, or another guest will like. So if we standardize our hospitality, we're not going to go far. We have to make sure that we make that connection with that specific guest, instead of just saying, okay, well, if the front desk, I don't know, checked you into the wrong room, I'm always going to give you free breakfast. Hey, I might not even be up so early, or I might have to be up so early in the morning that I have to leave, and that doesn't mean anything to me. So one size fits one. What I'm able to present to you, or I'm able to make it right for you, as whenever we make a mistake, that's the best approach. Listen to your guest, and having that understanding. So to go back to that, is never assuming that one size fits all. That will be it.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh my God, you're full of wisdom. This is going to be a very interesting episode. Okay. So are there any periods of the year that are better for job seekers to apply for jobs? And on top of your mind, do you have like any positions that are kind of high in demand, that you're looking for?
So obviously high season is always going to be the time where we tend to look for a little bit more help, or sometimes it happens. It could happen at any point in time, because of rotation, because of somebody getting a better job, whatever the case might be. But definitely high season is when we're like, okay, we need a lot of more hands on deck. And to say that also, a little bit before high season, because we tend to know when high season is coming. We tend to know that, for example, if we know here in Florida, it's going to be our winter season. Now, for the north, which I also worked in at the northeast, is the other way around. Summertime is when it's high season. So depends where you're at. Right before high season starts, maybe couple of weeks, 3 weeks before, maybe a month before, we start, heavily investing ourselves into hiring.
Any positions that are currently in demand that you see a trend like in growth of, let's say, concierges or whatever it might be?
It depends on the hotel. It really depends on the hotel, because there's hotels that focus more on one thing than others. Obviously, your typical front desk agents, housekeepers, all these type of positions are going to be open more. I remember back then, even though Belmont was not my go-to or was not my goal, it was my foot in the door. So with this comes a little bit of a let's say like a tip for people that are coming into hotels and wants to get their foot in. Don't get too caught up if you are looking, let's just say, for a front desk position or a front desk supervisor position. If you see that there's a quote unquote lesser position, go for it. And once you're in and you have that foot in, trust me, at least that's the way that I've done it. And I know many of my leaders that have done it. We like to promote from within. And a lot can happen in 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I promise you that. In the hospitality, if let's say you apply for a place and say, hey, look, I'm not really looking to be a supervisor. I really want to be a manager. But that's what you have right at the time. Go in and showcase what you really can do. And I promise you, the leaders, they're good leaders in that property, and see that drive, will do anything in their power to get you to that point. I understand that might be like a financial situations every now and then, but I'm talking to the people that really want to be in the hospitality business and that can take a little, let's just say, quote unquote, pay cut, but they want to be in a specific property or in a specific brand or anything like that. Don't get too caught up of like, hey, if it's not a director of front office or a director of housekeeping, I'm not going to take it. Hey, if you see that there's the assistant director or a senior manager position, go for it. We will see it as leaders inside of the property, and obviously make it known to us. Hey, I made this decision, but my goal is I want to get there. We as leaders, we love that because we know that we have people there that we can trust. And then after that, we'll move them to that position. Or Hey, me as a GM, I know a lot of GMs, not only in 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 the vicinity, not only in the Aventura region, but we know a lot of people. And I am the type of person, I'm the type of leader that if I see that there's something good for you, even though it's not with me, I will put you into the hands of another great leader as well.
Oh, wow. That's so big. Oh, I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. No, it's really, I don't want to say rare, but it's nowadays it's not really pretty common to meet people like you. If you have a good employee, everyone is trying to keep them for themselves. You know what I mean?
Look, hospitality is such a small niche. At some point, I know we'll meet again. I know we'll see each other again. It has happened. It has happened to me many times. One of my right now, she's a front office manager at a position in Boston. I hired her as a GSA, or as a guest service agent, uh, many years ago, and there was a point in time that she was a supervisor with us, but she had the opportunity to be a manager somewhere else, and I'm like, hey, this is the opportunity for you. I'm gonna be so sad that I'm letting you go, but it's about your growth in your career, not about mine. So and look again, that person and I, that manager, we're still in contact. We are still in contact, and she calls me every now and then for things. I call her sometimes as well, so we help each other out.
That's so nice to hear. Is including a picture on CV a good or a bad thing? And would you prefer to receive a CV with it or without it?
I personally, without it, it's just the way that I've been. I don't have one in mind. I have never really seen much of a leaders type of resume that have pictures on it. I don't mind it, but that's not gonna make it or break it. You know, that's not gonna make any difference to me. Um, I will see the person in person, and then I will make my decision, because it's not about how you look. Hospitality is I mean, it comes in all different shapes, sizes, colors, forms. I don't see it, and I'm not really sure if you're gonna have any major vice president of HR or director of HR that will make a decision based on a picture, on a resume. Not really. I don't have mine in my resume.
Which is something that is understandable, but it all also was quite popular, especially I know in LA and New York, because Broadway, Hollywood, yada yada yada. So we've been receiving, like, when we share tips from the audience, like, should I include a picture in my CV? And I'm like, when I hire, I don't care, but we are a remote company, so maybe it's important to some people. Okay, amazing. So one more question is, what is a realistic career progression path that a young person, let's say starting as a front desk agent, can plan for themselves? Like, how to put realistic goals so you, as a leader and as a GM, are aligned so people don't really, over imagine it and then get disappointed.
It really depends what their career goal is. You know, if you're thinking your career goal is to be, for example, a GM, or go over that and be a VP or a senior director, or in a corporate level, it looks different for everybody. But I'll definitely the interesting thing about hospitality is that within hospitality, you have an umbrella of things that you can go to, that if you learn a little bit of all of them, that's going to gain you a lot of knowledge. So the career path might look different. My career path, just to put an example, went more than anything through the rooms division side. I did, however, to take on this role, had to think, okay, I've never done F&B, so I had to get a little bit involved in F&B. I had to get, obviously, and started to get involved in finance and sales and all these, in order to be to be a good leader, to understand all of my department heads. But again, it looks different for everybody. So it depends what they want to do, but I will say try to get as much knowledge as possible, even within what you're doing. You should always you should always work on your position, but learn more when you're at your position. So think about it as you're not working for your position, you're working for the next level. So let's say you are a supervisor, start thinking or start getting knowledge from your manager. Hey, what can I do? Like this, start thinking like a manager. Once you're a manager, start thinking like a director. That's going to make it so much easier. And again, this is where leadership and this is when mentorship comes in so in handy. And having good mentors are always a huge plus, because when you tell your mentor that, let's say that is working side by side with you, let's say your GM, just to put an example, or if you're a supervisor, your manager, or your director, let them know, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to grow. I want to do this, and that. And your mentor will start giving you tasks and things to do that are already going to get you there. When and this is my personal belief and my personal experience. As I was growing in my career, I always asked the person above me, my manager, my supervisor, hey, what else can I do? What else can I learn to get into such and such position? Because it made it so much easier for me, put an example, as a supervisor to be a manager, because I already knew what the manager was doing. And when I was a manager, I started learning things as a director. So when I get to that point, I already know what to do. Or even in this case, this is my first time being a GM. I've been here for 2 years, but this is my first time as a GM. However, for many years before this past 2 years, with all my GMs, I'd had one-on-one meetings, and I've been eager to ask them, okay, what do I do with this? How do I look at a P&L? What is a P&L? How do I look at this sales spreadsheet? All this, what is Delphi? How do I look into that? And so when I got here into this position, I had a very strong idea, let's just say that, on how to do this job. So every time that you are on a level, start thinking on the next one and start getting as much knowledge as you can on that one, so that when you're there, you already know how to perform.
That's a piece of advice that I wish I got a long time ago. But okay, we learn every day in our lives. Okay, I did skip one question. Do you have a favorite interview question, or like a type of question that you like to ask when you're interviewing people?
Yes. And it's not a favorite question, but it's a question that I always ask, and probably everybody does. However, I pay very close attention to it. Do you have any questions for me? When I ask that last question, do you have any questions for me? If your first question is, yeah, how much do you pay? So are you really interested in being hospitable? Are you really interested in the job or the place? Or you just want to get a paycheck and be out? Or some people say, again, that question comes also to do some research. If you're asking me at that point very simple questions or very vague questions about what the hotel is, I mean, you should have done that little research. It's public. But again, I like to listen a lot to that. Do you have any questions for me, or anything, any comments that you like to make? That's something that I always finish with. And
Okay,
actually, a lot of really good conversations come out of that too. At the end,
that was my next question. So, what is a good answer? Just give us one. I'm not asking you to give us the cheat sheet, but just give us an example of what would I want to say an ideal answer to the question. Do you have any questions for me? Would be.
look, again, we're looking for specific roles here, right? We're looking for either a server or we're looking for a person in finance or a finance clerk. But a really good answer to that will be, look, I understand that you're having this position available, but what do you really need from me? Is there anything else that I can come in and help you out? Is there any specific skills that you need from me in order to do this? And that just tells me that you're not only here just for your 9 to 5, your clock in, your clock out, your 7 to 3, or your 3 to 11. You're here to, when we have you here on property, we have your 100%. Because everybody that is here, obviously we're humans, but we're here giving our 100%. And sometimes a good answer to quote unquote an issue for F&B, my front office manager has it. But that goes back again to communication. And we are here so in tune with what our synergy is and our goals that it doesn't matter what area you are, but having to tell me on an interview on that question and say, look, I know that I'm here to be a finance clerk, but should you need me for anything else, I'll be more than happy to.